August 1940. The southern coast of England tastes of salt and mist. At Biggin Hill, people look up as a single, unmistakable voice rises in the air. The Merlin. Young pilots stand in the shadow of their metal birds. A stick of gum in a pocket, a creased letter, a lucky coin, dry lips, the taste of fuel. The radio breaks into shards of words, call signs, and urgency. Sergeant John Allison tightens his harness. His hand finds the cool grip by memory. Altitude builds, sunlight flares on the canopy, a black cross flashes through the sight. A short turn, a short burst, and it feels as if the aircraft already knows the answer. In the sky, every second is a verdict. Every burst has weight. Every roll asks the question of whether London will see the morning. This story didn't begin in smoke. It began at a drawing board, where a pencil traced lines of beauty that would become a weapon. It's a story about how a wing's geometry and an engine's song changed a war, and how a few hundred 20-year-olds held the line where freedom stood. In the early 1930s, Reginald Joseph Mitchell of Supermarine carried a stubborn idea. Speed should be elegant, not brutish. After the Schneider Trophy seaplanes, he fell for the elliptical wing, a shape that meant less drag, a cleaner flow, the sensation of moving through air without friction. The fuselage was smooth, a stretched breath from nose to wingtips, no wasted crease. Then came the Merlin, 12 cylinders, a deep low note that didn't just sound, it lived. When the prototype Spitfire flew in 1936, the pilots fell silent not for lack of words, but because words felt unnecessary. The machine responded to touch like a fine instrument, the smallest input, and the aircraft was already where the pilot intended it to be. Europe darkened. 1939 brought blow after blow. When the map shrank to a narrow strip of channel water, Britain bet its defence on two things: people and machines. The Hurricane, the sturdy workhorse, the Spitfire, the sharpened blade. One carried the mass of the fight, the other stole the seconds that decide everything. July to October 1940. The Luftwaffe comes in waves. Heinkels and Dorniers under the guard of Bf-19s. Radar plots vectors. Controllers shout headings. Squadrons scramble by threes. What looks like chaos on the ground becomes a strict dance at the limits of physics in the air. Spitfire versus Bf-109 is not only about horsepower, it is geometry against geometry. The German climbs hard, the Briton turns tighter. The elliptical wing gives back what pilots pay for in blood. 1 second of advantage. 1 second is the enemy's tail in the sight. 1 second is the burst that tears a bomber open in the sunlight. 1 second is the difference between a home runway and a name on a board. Inside those seconds live people. Douglas Bader, flying without legs, teaching everyone that enough is a word for later. George Unwin, rubbing luck into the control column before takeoff. Sailor Merlin, who hammered out rules of air combat as simple and hard as a tool. Attack out of the sun, fire close, don't waste rounds, cover your mate. Between raids, tea in a tin, laughter, a quick sleep in a jacket that still smells of cordite and hot metal. They are 20, and older than their century. Days blur. Convoys, the Thames, Dover again, the east wind again. Below, children are told to get under the table. Above, a pilot clenches his jaw as the canopy crazes with splinters, and each time it feels as if the sky will fall, a familiar voice cuts the ether. Blue, right, hold! And the Spitfire rolls into the turn. September brings fragile changes, fewer dots on the radar scope. Raids continue, but the sense of inevitability drains away. One evening, the sky over London is dark without rivers of fire. One morning, a scramble is stood down, not for lack of fuel, but because the mass attack won't come today. And slowly it becomes clear. The invasion is off, at least for now, then the line that will outlive the century. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. It speaks for those who came back and those who didn't, for the names lost in soot along a canopy rim and the voices still humming in the air whenever a Merlin winds up. The Spitfire will fly on, with new wings, new guns, reprofiles and marks, with different noses and skins. But in memory it remains the same, a clean line against the sky, an answer to whether darkness can be checked by beauty and will. When the sky over Britain finally cleared, the Spitfire was already more than an airplane. It had become a legend.